Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Lagos was a city of movement, bustling streets, the honking of impatient drivers, the scent of roasted plantains mixing with high-end perfume from women stepping out of luxury SUVs. The heartbeat of Nigeria throbbed through its veins, and at its core stood Nathan Kalu, a man of wealth, power, and a carefully crafted reputation. To outsiders, Nathan and Amara Kalu were the epitome of a perfect couple. Their love story had been one for the books, two young souls meeting at the University of Ibadan, falling in love amidst exams and late-night study sessions. Amara had been drawn to Nathan's sharp mind and quiet strength, while he had been enchanted by her kindness and beauty. They had built a life together, a business empire flourishing alongside their marriage. But as Amara sat alone in their Ikoyi mansion, staring at her phone, she felt a loneliness that gnawed at her bones. The man she had married was not the man she saw today. The distance between them. It had started subtly, a late night here, an ignored call there. Nathan had always been ambitious, but lately, work had become more than just work. His business dealings extended into strange hours, his phone locked more often, and there was always a meeting, an event, a business trip. Amara, now 8 months pregnant, found herself longing for her husband's presence. She craved his touch, his voice, the reassurance that she was not alone in this journey of bringing their first child into the world. But Nathan's affection had become scarce, and in its place, she felt a wall growing between them. Her mother had warned her about men and their wandering eyes. A man with money and power is a man whose loyalty will be tested every day, she had said. Amara had brushed it off then, believing that their love was different. Now, she wasn't so sure. She looked at the expensive decor of their home, gold-accented vases, imported Italian furniture, chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds. Everything around her spoke of wealth, but what was wealth when it came with emptiness? The other woman. Nathan sat in his private office, scrolling through his phone with an amused smile. Linda. Just the sight of her name sent a rush of adrenaline through him. She was everything Amara was not: young, carefree, daring. Where Amara was homely and nurturing, Linda was wild and unpredictable. She made him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. Their affair had started as a simple flirtation, a distraction, but now it was something else entirely. Linda wasn't like the women who begged for his attention. She played hard to get, making him chase, making him want her even more. And now, as she sent a teasing voice note about their upcoming spa day, he felt a tinge of excitement. He had promised Amara he would be home early that evening, but promises were flexible, weren't they? Amara's suspicions. The first time Amara suspected something was wrong was when she found a receipt from a high-end jewelry store. It wasn't the purchase that unsettled her, it was the fact that the necklace was something she had never received. She had confronted Nathan about it, laughing nervously to hide the growing knot in her stomach. "Who's the lucky lady?" she had teased, hoping he would smile and hand her the gift. Instead, he had frowned, his expression unreadable. It was for a business partner's wife. A birthday present, he had said. His tone had been casual, too casual. Amara had nodded, forcing herself to believe him. But doubts had begun to creep in, and they only grew stronger with time. Nathan had become more secretive, his phone always face down, his scent often carrying traces of perfume that wasn't hers. The distance between them was no longer just emotional, it was physical. She had tried everything, dressing up more, cooking his favorite meals, even initiating conversations about their future. But nothing seemed to bring him back. A desperate attempt at love. One evening, Amara decided to surprise Nathan. She booked a dinner reservation at their favorite restaurant, the same place he had proposed to her years ago. She wore the red dress he used to love, styled her hair the way he liked, and even put on the perfume he had bought her on their anniversary. When Nathan walked through the door that evening, she beamed. "I have a surprise for you," she said excitedly. "Let's go out, just us?" But his expression was unreadable. Amara, I have a long day tomorrow. Maybe another time. She felt something break inside her. Another time. Another excuse. Another rejection. She stood there, feeling foolish as he walked past her, unbothered, and went straight to his study. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. The unanswered call. Amara's due date was fast approaching, and with each passing day, her anxiety grew. One afternoon, as she sat in the living room, her best friend Chinu visited. "You look pale," Chinu observed. "Are you okay?" Amara sighed. "I don't know, Chinu. I feel like Nathan is slipping away from me." Chinu frowned. "Have you talked to him?" "Tried. He's always busy." Chinu pursed her lips. "Amara, you deserve better. You're carrying his child. He should be here for you." Amara swallowed the lump in her throat. She knew Chinu was right. But what could she do? That evening, as Nathan dressed up to leave again, she placed a hand on his arm. "Where are you going?" "A business meeting," he said smoothly. "Again?" She hated the way her voice cracked. He sighed, clearly irritated. "Amara, stop being so dramatic. Not everything is about you." She let go of his arm, stunned by his words. He didn't even wait for a response before he grabbed his car keys and walked out the door. That night, as Amara sat in bed, she felt the first sharp pain in her stomach. A contraction. Her heart raced. It was too soon. She grabbed her phone and dialed Nathan's number, her hands trembling. No answer. She called again. And again. Nothing. Her water broke. Panic set in. She was going into labor. Alone. And her husband? He was at a luxurious spa with another woman, his phone on silent, oblivious to the fact that the wife he had vowed to love and cherish was about to bring their child into the world, without him. The agony of being alone. Sharp, unrelenting pain shot through Amara's body as she doubled over on the floor, clutching her swollen belly. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the couch for support. She tried Nathan's number again. Twice. 3 times. No answer. Tears blurred her vision. Her contractions were getting stronger, faster. It was too soon. Her due date was still 3 weeks away. But the baby had decided otherwise. She needed to get to the hospital. Her heart pounded in panic as she struggled to stand. She reached for the small bag she had packed for this moment, but her hands shook so much that it slipped from her grip. Her phone rang. Relief surged through her. "Nathan?" It was Chinu. "Amara, what's wrong?" Chinu's voice was sharp with concern. I think the baby is coming," Amara gasped. "Nathan isn't picking up. I need help. Stay where you are. I'm coming now." Chinu didn't wait for a response before ending the call. Amara slumped onto the couch, clutching her belly, breathing through the pain. Each contraction felt like fire searing through her body. The betrayal of Nathan's absence stung as much as the physical agony. Where was he? Nathan's escape from responsibility. Across the city, in a high-end spa tucked away in Victoria Island, Nathan Kalu lounged in a private suite, his body submerged in a warm bubble bath. Soft jazz played in the background, and Linda sat beside him, sipping a glass of champagne. "Relax, baby," she purred, running her fingers along his arm. "You're always so tense." Nathan exhaled, closing his eyes. "It's just business stress. You work too much," Linda teased. "You need to spoil yourself more." Nathan chuckled, lifting his champagne flute. "That's why I have you." His phone lay on the wooden side table, screen lighting up repeatedly with Amara's name. But it remained on silent. Linda glanced at it. "Someone's desperate to reach you." Nathan barely looked. "It's nothing important." Linda smirked. "You're sure?" "Positive." He took a slow sip of champagne, oblivious to the chaos unraveling at home. The race to the hospital. Chinu's car screeched to a halt in front of Amara's mansion. She sprinted inside and found Amara curled up on the floor, drenched in sweat. "Oh my God, Amara." Chinu rushed to her side, slipping an arm around her. "Hospital," Amara groaned, her face contorted in pain. "Hold on, we're going now." With great effort, Chinu helped Amara into the car. As she sped towards the hospital, She tried calling Nathan herself. Still no answer. She cursed under her breath. I swear if that man… Chinu, please, just drive, Amara murmured weakly. Chinu clenched her jaw, her grip tightening on the wheel. By the time they reached the hospital, Amara's contractions were dangerously close together. The nurses rushed her inside as Chinu followed, barking instructions. She's 8 months pregnant. The contractions started suddenly. The doctor, a stern woman in her 50s, gave orders swiftly. She's in active labor. We need to monitor the baby. Get her to maternity now. Amara barely registered the movement around her. The only thought that pulsed in her mind over and over was, Nathan isn't here. The beginning of complications. Hours passed. The pain intensified. Amara lay on the hospital bed, drenched in sweat, gripping the sheets. Chinu held her hand tightly. You're doing great, Chinu encouraged, though her own heart was hammering in fear. Where is Nathan? Amara whimpered. Chinu glanced at her phone. Still no response. You don't need him, she whispered fiercely. You have me. Focus on yourself and the baby. A nurse suddenly rushed in, her face tense. Doctor, the baby's heart rate is dropping. Fear shot through Amara like lightning. The doctor checked the monitors. We might have to do an emergency C-section. Amara gasped. What? No. It's for your baby's safety. Tears slipped down Amara's face as Chinu squeezed her hand. Amara, listen to me, Chinu said, voice thick with emotion. You have to be strong. The doctor turned to the nurse. Prepare for surgery. Now, Nathan's moment of realization. Nathan finally reached for his phone after hours of indulgence. He smirked, expecting meaningless texts. But when he saw the 26 missed calls from Amara and Chinu, the smirk faded. His stomach twisted as he tapped on the latest message from Chinu. Amara is in labor. Baby's heart rate dropping. Where are you? Panic surged through him. He shot up from the spa bed. Shit. Linda frowned. What's wrong? Nathan was already dressing. I have to go. No. But we were supposed to. I said I have to go. He didn't wait for her reply. He bolted out of the spa, jumped into his car, and sped towards the hospital, his mind racing. Was the baby okay? Was Amara okay? Had he just made the biggest mistake of his life? A matter of life and death. At the hospital, Amara was wheeled into the operating room. The bright lights above her blurred as exhaustion overtook her. She wanted to fight, to stay awake, but her body felt too weak. God, please, she prayed silently. She barely heard the doctor's voice as they prepared for the incision. She barely heard Chinu's frantic plea. But then, darkness. The last thing she thought of before slipping into unconsciousness was Nathan never came. A race against time. Nathan's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as he weaved through the chaotic Lagos traffic, his foot pressing harder against the accelerator. His mind was in turmoil, his heart pounding with fear. Amara is in labor. Baby's heart rate dropping. Where are you? Chinu's message echoed in his head. He had ignored his wife's desperate calls. He had chosen luxury over responsibility. Now, as he sped through the congested streets, panic clawed at his chest. The irony was suffocating. He had spent months avoiding the reality of his responsibilities, and now he was desperately racing toward them, fearing he might already be too late. The hospital finally came into view. Nathan barely waited for the car to stop before throwing the door open and running inside. His heart sank as he saw Chinu pacing furiously in the waiting area, her arms crossed, her face tight with anger and worry. When she spotted him, her expression turned ice cold. You finally decided to show up? She spat. Nathan ignored her tone, his voice hoarse. Where is she? Where's my wife? Chinu folded her arms. She's in surgery, Nathan. Emergency C-section. Because you weren't there when she needed you. Nathan felt like the air had been knocked out of him. Surgery? His voice wavered. The baby's heart rate was dropping, Chinu said, her eyes flashing with fury. The doctors had to act fast. Do you even realize how close you came to losing them? Nathan took a shaky breath, his legs suddenly weak. He ran a hand over his face, guilt crashing over him like a tidal wave. What happened? He whispered, almost to himself. You happened? Chinu snapped. You abandoned your wife for some meaningless fling, and now she's fighting for her life while you show up hours late pretending to care. Nathan clenched his jaw, unable to respond. The weight of his actions pressed heavily on him. The reality of what he had done, what he had risked, was suffocating. A silent operating room. Inside the operating room, the tension was thick. The surgeons worked quickly, their voices low but urgent. Amara lay unconscious on the table, her face pale, her breathing slow. The incision had been made. The doctors moved swiftly, bringing the baby out, tiny, fragile, unmoving. For a few agonizing seconds, there was silence. Then, a small, weak cry filled the room. The doctors exhaled in relief. The baby was alive, but barely. She's premature, one of the doctors said. She needs immediate oxygen support. Get her to the NICU. The nurse rushed off with the infant, while another doctor turned to focus on Amara. Her vitals are unstable, the assistant surgeon warned. The lead doctor frowned. We need to stop the bleeding, fast. The battle was far from over. Nathan faces his demons. Nathan sat in the waiting area, head in his hands. The minutes felt like hours. Chinu hadn't spoken to him again, and he couldn't blame her. His mind drifted back to the past, to the younger version of himself who had once been so madly in love with Amara that he couldn't imagine life without her. When had everything changed? Had he been so blinded by greed and lust that he had forgotten what truly mattered? Suddenly, a doctor emerged from the double doors. Nathan shot to his feet. Doctor, how is she? The doctor sighed. Your wife is stable, but she lost a lot of blood. She's unconscious right now, but we expect her to wake up soon. Nathan felt the tension in his chest loosen slightly. And the baby? The doctor hesitated. Your daughter is in the NICU. She was born prematurely, and her lungs are weak. The next few days are critical. Daughter. Nathan's breath hitched. He had a daughter. He should have been there to welcome her into the world. Instead, he had been sipping champagne in a spa with another woman. The weight of his failure settled heavily on him. Can I see them? He asked. The doctor nodded. Your wife will be moved to a private room soon. But be prepared, she might not want to see you. Nathan swallowed hard. He knew he had no right to expect forgiveness. But he had to try. The mistress's reality check. Linda reclined lazily on her couch, scrolling through her phone. She had expected Nathan to call or text, but hours had passed with nothing. Curious, she opened a social media gossip page, and what she saw made her sit up straight. Business mogul Nathan Kalu rushes to hospital as wife goes into emergency labor. Sources say baby was delivered prematurely. Prayers up for the Kalu family. Her heart pounded. Nathan's wife had given birth? She had always known he was married, but she had convinced herself that it didn't matter, that she was the one who truly had his heart. But now, seeing the news, an unsettling feeling crept into her chest. She tried calling Nathan. No answer. A sinking realization hit her. She was just a fling. Nothing more. And now, she was losing him. A broken marriage. Hours later, Nathan finally stood outside Amara's hospital room. Chinu was inside with her, speaking softly. Nathan took a deep breath before stepping in. Amara lay on the bed, her face pale, her body weak. But when she opened her eyes and saw him, they darkened with something cold and unforgiving. He took a cautious step forward. Amara, get out. Her voice was hoarse but firm. Amara, please, Nathan pleaded. But where were you? She cut him off, her voice trembling with pain. Nathan swallowed hard. I was. Don't lie. Her eyes burned with fury. I needed you. Our baby needed you. And you were gone. Nathan's shoulders slumped. I made a mistake. Amara let out a bitter laugh, but it quickly turned into a wince of pain. Chinu placed a hand on her shoulder, shooting Nathan a murderous glare. You made a choice, Amara whispered, her eyes filling with tears. And now, I'm making mine. Nathan's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Amara exhaled shakily, turning her face away. I don't want to see you, Nathan. Not now. Not ever. Nathan felt his world crumble. He had been so afraid of commitment, of responsibility, that he had let the best thing in his life slip through his fingers. And now he might have lost Amara forever. Cold welcome. Nathan stood frozen at the doorway, staring at Amara. Her words echoed in his ears. "I don't want to see you, Nathan. Not now. Not ever." Her eyes, once filled with love, now held nothing but pain and disgust. Chinu was standing protectively beside her, arms crossed, her glare drilling into him like a blade. "You heard her," Chinu snapped. "Leave." Nathan's heart pounded. "Amara, please. I know I messed up, but let me explain." Amara turned her head away, staring blankly at the hospital wall. "There's nothing to explain, Nathan. You weren't there when it mattered. Now, it doesn't matter anymore." Her voice was eerily calm, which made it even worse. Nathan took a deep breath, his hands clenched into fists. "What about the baby?" Amara flinched at the mention of their child, but she refused to look at him. "She's in the NICU. Fighting for her life. Alone." Nathan's guilt hit him like a sledgehammer. Chinu scoffed. "Oh, now you care? After ignoring her mother's desperate calls while you were off playing lover boy?" Nathan opened his mouth to argue but shut it. He had no defense. Amara's voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke again. "Go see your daughter if you want. But as for me, I'm done, Nathan." Nathan felt his chest tighten. Was this really the end? A father meets his daughter. Nathan slowly made his way toward the NICU. His feet felt heavy, as if he were walking through wet sand. When he reached the room, he froze. Inside, tiny incubators lined the walls, each holding a fragile newborn fighting for survival. The soft beeping of monitors filled the air. Then he saw her. His daughter. She was so small, her body barely visible beneath the wires and tubes attached to her. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, each one a struggle. Nathan swallowed hard. A sudden, overwhelming protectiveness swelled in his chest. This was his child. His blood. A nurse approached him gently. "She's a fighter," she said softly. "But she needs time. The next few days are critical." Nathan nodded, unable to find words. As he watched his daughter struggle to breathe, the weight of his absence crushed him. Would she even make it? And if she did, would she ever forgive him for not being there when she entered the world? The mistress's last attempt. Linda was restless. Nathan had ignored her messages, and she wasn't used to being ignored. She had convinced herself that she was different, special. That she wasn't just another side piece. But now, doubt clawed at her mind. Unable to sit still, she grabbed her car keys and drove straight to Nathan's office. The receptionist looked startled when she walked in. "Ms. Linda, Mr. Kalu isn't here right now." "I'll wait," Linda said coolly, sitting on one of the leather chairs in the lobby. Minutes turned into an hour. Then two. Finally, she saw Nathan's business partner, Tund, walking past. "Tund," she called out, forcing a smile. Tund hesitated before approaching. "Linda, what are you doing here?" She crossed her arms. "Looking for Nathan." "Where is he?" Tund gave her a strange look. "At the hospital. His wife just had a baby." Linda's stomach dropped. "I know that," she said, feigning confidence. "But I thought he'd be back by now." Tund chuckled, shaking his head. "Linda, let me give you some advice. Nathan is a married man. And now he's a father. So," she snapped. "So, whatever you had with him, it's over." Linda's jaw tightened. "You don't know that." Tund sighed. "You were just a distraction. Trust me, I know Nathan. When reality hits, he always runs back to his family." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. She had thought she had control. But maybe she had been fooling herself all along. A dark revelation. Nathan was still at the hospital when his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Unknown number, you should know the truth about Linda. Call me." Nathan frowned. His gut told him to ignore it. But something in him hesitated. Curiosity won. He dialed the number. A deep male voice answered. "Nathan Kalu? Who is this?" Nathan demanded. "You don't know me, but I know Linda. And I know what she's been doing." Nathan's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" The man chuckled darkly. You thought you were the only one? My guy, she's been playing you. Just like she played me. Just like she played the man before me. Nathan's grip tightened on his phone. Check her bank transactions, the voice continued. She's been getting gifts from more than just you. She's been using all of you. Including me. Nathan felt sick. Could it be true? Had he risked his marriage, his family, his child, for a con artist? Who the hell are you? Nathan demanded. Just another fool who learned the hard way, the man said. Do yourself a favor, Nathan. Cut your losses. Walk away. The call ended. Nathan sat there, his mind spinning. Had he really thrown away everything for nothing? A bitter confrontation. Nathan needed answers. The next day, he called Linda. She answered on the second ring. Nathan. Her voice was sweet, seductive. I need to see you, he said coldly. She hesitated. Now. An hour later, they met at a secluded restaurant. Linda sauntered in confidently, her hips swaying. Baby, you've been ignoring me. Who is he? Nathan cut her off. Linda blinked. Who? The other man. Or should I say men? Her face faltered. Nathan, what are you? You played me, didn't you? His voice was dangerously low. Linda swallowed. Nathan, don't lie. His eyes were cold. I know everything. For the first time, Linda looked nervous. Nathan leaned back, laughing bitterly. I destroyed my marriage for you. Ignored my wife in labor. And for what? A woman who was never mine to begin with? Linda opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Nathan shook his head, standing up. We're done, Linda. Nathan, please. She reached for his arm, but he pulled away. You never cared about me, he said. And now? I don't care about you either. Then he walked away, leaving Linda alone in the restaurant, her face drained of all color. For the first time in her life, she had lost. A door slammed shut. Back at the hospital, Nathan stood outside Amara's room, watching her as she cradled their tiny daughter. She looked so fragile, yet so strong. He had broken her. And he didn't know if he could ever fix it. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. Amara looked up, her expression unreadable. Nathan swallowed. Can we talk? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down at their baby, her fingers tracing the little one's cheek. Then she finally met his gaze. You're too late, Nathan. Nathan's heart cracked. Maybe she was right. Maybe this time, love wouldn't be enough to fix what he had shattered. A love that no longer exists. Nathan stood frozen at the doorway of Amara's hospital room, staring at his wife and the tiny baby she cradled in her arms. His daughter. His flesh and blood. Yet, when Amara finally looked up at him, there was nothing in her gaze but exhaustion and quiet resolve. You're too late, Nathan. The words cut deeper than he expected. His voice wavered. Amara, I know I hurt you. But I want to fix this. She let out a bitter chuckle, shaking her head. Fix what? This isn't a business deal, Nathan. You don't just walk in, say the right things, and expect everything to go back to normal. Nathan took a slow step forward, his heart pounding. I was stupid. I made mistakes. But I love you, Amara. And I love our daughter. Amara inhaled sharply, adjusting the baby in her arms. You ignored my calls while I was in labor, Nathan. Do you even understand what that means? He lowered his head, shame burning his skin. You weren't there when I was screaming in pain, she continued, her voice tight with emotion. You weren't there when I thought I was dying. You weren't there when our daughter entered this world struggling to breathe. Chinu was there. Strangers were there. But my husband? He was too busy with another woman. Nathan's chest ached as he reached out. Amara. She flinched. But just don't. For the first time since he had met her, she looked at him as if he were a stranger. And that terrified him. The public downfall. News of Nathan's absence at his daughter's birth had spread like wildfire. What had started as hushed whispers among close circles had erupted into full-blown scandal, especially after someone leaked a photo of him and Linda at the spa on the same night Amara had been rushed to the hospital. Social media erupted. How can a man abandon his wife in labor for a side chick? Trash. Nathan Kalu has money but no sense. Imagine choosing an Instagram slay queen over your own child. I feel so bad for Amara. Women go through so much for men who don't deserve them. Nathan's business suffered almost immediately. His investors were furious. Some pulled out. His company's stock dipped. And his mother? When she called him, her voice was laced with disappointment. You were raised better than this, Nathan. You shamed this family. You shamed your wife. You shamed yourself. For the first time in years, Nathan felt truly helpless. Everything was crumbling. A dark secret about Linda. Nathan had cut Linda off completely, but his humiliation wasn't over yet. One evening, as he sat in his office drowning in stress, Tund barged in. You won't believe what I just found out, Tund said, tossing a thick envelope onto Nathan's desk. Nathan frowned, opening it. Inside were bank statements, hotel receipts, and transaction histories. Nathan's blood ran cold. It was all linked to Linda. And multiple other men. You thought you were the only one? The words of the anonymous caller from the other day echoed in his mind. Nathan clenched his jaw. She was scamming me? Tund nodded. You, me, and half the men in Lagos, apparently. Nathan closed his eyes. He had risked everything for a woman who had played him like a fool. Now, he had nothing. The paternity question no one expected. A few days later, Amara was discharged from the hospital with their baby, who was still small but growing stronger. Nathan had desperately tried to be involved, offering to drive them home, arranging for nurses, but Amara refused his help at every turn. She didn't trust him anymore. And then came the final blow. Chinu had been silent for a while, but when she finally spoke, her words sent an earthquake through Nathan's world. You need to get a paternity test? Nathan blinked. What? Amara, who had been feeding the baby, stiffened. Excuse me? Chinu's expression was unreadable. The baby was born premature. Right? Amara's face darkened. What exactly are you trying to say? I'm saying, Chinu continued carefully, that if Nathan was out sleeping around, are we sure this baby is his? A heavy silence filled the room. Nathan's mind spun. Could it be possible? Amara's face turned red with fury. How dare you? Chinu lifted a hand. I'm not trying to be cruel. But this man betrayed you. You owe him nothing. If I were you, I'd make him prove he deserves to call this baby his. Nathan opened his mouth to protest, but the words died on his tongue. Amara's hands tightened around the baby. Then her voice was calm, almost too calm. She said, You want a test? Let's do it. A man at his lowest. The days leading up to the paternity test were the worst of Nathan's life. He had gone from being a respected businessman to a public disgrace. His wife barely spoke to him. His daughter, the child he was sure was his, was suddenly in question. And worst of all, he had no one to blame but himself. Sitting alone in his now empty mansion, he thought back to the man he used to be. Once, he had been a man Amara trusted. A man people respected. But now, he was a man with everything to lose and nothing to hold on to. And the worst part? He deserved it. A truth that changes everything. The day of the paternity test arrived. Nathan, Amara, and Chinu sat in silence at the hospital as the doctor reviewed the results. Nathan's heart pounded. He wasn't even sure what he was afraid of anymore. Finally, the doctor cleared his throat. The DNA results confirm that Mr. Kalu is indeed the father of the child. Silence. Nathan exhaled in relief. Amara, however, simply stood up, adjusting her baby's blanket. I already knew that, she said coldly. Chinu looked embarrassed but said nothing. Nathan looked at Amara desperately. Does this mean we can? She didn't let him finish. Goodbye, Nathan. She turned and walked away, cradling their daughter. And just like that, Nathan knew. This wasn't just a fight. This wasn't just a mistake. He had truly lost her. And he might never get her back. A man at rock bottom. Nathan sat alone in his mansion, staring at the half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him. The once lively house now felt like an empty shell, echoing the emptiness in his chest. He had lost everything. His wife. His daughter. His reputation. Everything he had once taken for granted was now slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. He thought back to the moment Amara had walked out of that hospital room, carrying their daughter, without a single backward glance. That was the moment he truly realized he wasn't just in trouble. He was alone. For the first time in his life, Nathan Kalu, the great businessman, the powerful CEO, the man who thought he could get away with anything, was powerless. And he had no one to blame but himself. Amara's journey of healing. Amara settled into her mother's home in Hstorytine, a far cry from the luxurious Ikoyi mansion she had shared with Nathan. But here she felt safe. She focused all her energy on her newborn daughter, pouring every ounce of love into the child who had come into the world under such painful circumstances. Her mother, a strong woman who had survived her own heartbreaks, watched her carefully. "You haven't cried," Mama observed one afternoon as she rocked the baby. Amara shrugged, folding baby clothes. "What's the point? Tears won't change anything." Mama sighed. "I understand why you left Nathan. But is your heart truly free from him?" Amara paused. Was it? She had told herself she was done, that she had closed that chapter forever. But late at night, when the house was silent and her daughter was asleep, she found herself remembering the good times. The way Nathan used to look at her. The way he used to hold her. The man he had once been, before greed, temptation, and betrayal turned him into a stranger. Could she ever forgive him? Did she even want to? Nathan's attempt at redemption. Nathan knew he had to change. For himself. For Amara. For his daughter. He started by cutting off all distractions. Linda was permanently blocked. Any reminders of his past indulgences were erased. Then he took things a step further. He stepped away from his company, handing over leadership to his board members. He reached out to charities, investing in programs that supported single mothers, as if trying to atone for what he had done. But none of it mattered if Amara never saw it. So one evening he swallowed his pride and knocked on the door of her mother's house. When Amara opened the door, her eyes widened. "What are you doing here?" Nathan's voice was quiet, humble. "Can we talk?" She hesitated, but then sighed, stepping outside to face him. He exhaled. "I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm trying. I'm not the same man I was." Amara crossed her arms. "And what do you expect me to do with that information?" Nathan swallowed hard. "Nothing. But I want to be in our daughter's life. I want to be the father she deserves." For the first time, Amara saw something different in Nathan's eyes. Regret. Real, painful regret. Maybe, just maybe, he had truly changed. The final confrontation. Days later, Linda showed up at Nathan's office, looking desperate. "You think you can just walk away from me?" she hissed. Nathan barely looked up from his desk. "I already did." Linda scoffed. "You're making a mistake, Nathan." "No," he said, finally meeting her gaze. "The mistake was ever thinking you were worth losing my family for." Linda's face turned red with rage. "You think Amara will take you back? After what you did?" Nathan sighed. "That's up to her. But you and I are done. Forever." Linda glared at him. "You'll regret this." Nathan smirked. "No, Linda. The only thing I regret is meeting you." And with that he walked away, leaving her standing there, seething in her defeat. A new beginning? Weeks passed. Nathan proved himself. He showed up for every doctor's appointment. He spent nights in the hospital rocking their daughter. He no longer begged Amara for forgiveness. He simply showed her that he had changed. And slowly her walls began to crack. One evening, as they sat in the hospital, watching their daughter sleep, Amara finally spoke. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she admitted. Nathan nodded. "I understand. But..." She hesitated. "I see that you're trying. And that means something." Nathan's breath hitched. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. The final decision. Months later, Amara stood outside the mansion she had once shared with Nathan. He had asked her to come. Not to beg. Not to plead. But to talk. As she stepped inside, memories flooded her. The good, the bad, the heartbreaking. Nathan stood there, looking at her with quiet hope. "I want to co-parent," she said finally. Nathan's face fell slightly, But he nodded. Of course. Amara took a deep breath. And maybe one day, we'll see if there's anything left to save. Nathan's eyes filled with emotion. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a chance. And for the first time in a long time, there was hope. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.